to them was Rumble in the Bronx.
Yeah.
Because Tarantino brought it over here. So I saw it in the theater. I'm like, this is amazing. And then I watched the other movies that came out with him in it, like Operation Condor.
Yep.
And then so as soon as I could start renting these movies, I started. But we're not, like, this is late 90s when I started doing that. So I was not on this Hong Kong wave. I was into Hard Boiled much later than Jackie Chan. I didn't learn about Hard Boiled probably till the late 2000s.
I was going to say, I don't think I've got the Hard Boiled DVD, but I don't think I actually watched that till, probably late 2000s as well for the first time.
Because you don't know much about the gun fu as you know much about the Jackie Chan. Because he blew up in the 2000s.
Yeah.
In the States. Like, Shanghai Nights and Shanghai Noon, they're good movies.
They are good movies.
They're good action movies.
I almost went and bought those on Vudu the other day.
They're not just, you think that they're cheeky movies with Owen Wilson, but they're good. Like, they're both fresh on Rotten Tomatoes. They crush it. So I had to have two Jackie Chans because I think he's the king of the 90s action. Then I had to have Jet Li in Fist of Legend. Now, Fist of Legend was tier 1 because you look at the choreography in The Matrix and you'll see it in this movie. So that's why I had it. But that's tier 2. So, hey, let's take a break. When we come back, we'll do tier 3, 4, and 5. Welcome back to Movies, Films, and Flicks. And I'm worried, Tom, because you're not angry. I've seen you on film sets before. We've been drinking coffee, blocking up some area, probably 6-7 years ago. And you just start screaming about an exclusion from the 1980s list.
Well, I'm sorry to curse on here, but it's kind of pissing me off because I can't argue with it so far. You've got a couple movies that I haven't seen, so I can't.
I was worried about that.
I can't go off on those.
Yeah.
I can replace them with something else, but right now I can't be angry over them because of the quality of films that you have picked have surprisingly been good. But looking at your tier 3, I love this tier 3. This tier 3 could be my tier 1.
Really?
It could be. It's so close.
Does it make sense to you based on my first 2 tiers, though? Tier 3?
Yeah, I think I could take out a couple of these and put in and bump some of these movies up.
All right, so in my tier 3, I have some movies that are really... I didn't know how to do it. This was tough. But my tier 3, it's The Rock.
Yeah.
Directed by Michael Bay. He had made Bad Boys, which is a good action film. But The Rock... All right, so I love Bad Boys. I almost put it in the list, or maybe I did. But it's more of a stock... It's an action film, right? It's just a fun action film. The Rock... They have to find Sean Connery. He does kill tons of people with a Hummer, though, when he runs through a building. He murders San Francisco people.
He destroys San Francisco, knocks that trolley off it blows up like a whole city block.
Yeah, that's my least favorite part of the movie. That part could not exist and I would be fine. But they have to break into Alcatraz to fight an antagonist who you like. And you
relate to him.
He has Tony Todd. Like, he has some of the best henchmen.
Ed Harris as Francis X. Hummel. The sad thing is I know these characters' names. Because I've seen this movie so much. At one point in high school, after I quit all athletics, every day I went home and watched at least part of this movie and then continued it until I just started it over. And for almost a month straight, that's all I did every time I went home. I went home and I watched The Rock.
I mean,
it's got everything for me. This is definitely tier 1.
And I almost moved this up higher because this kicked off the Nick Cage action craze. And so we'll get further into his movies as we get down the list. But this movie, I thought him and Connery had fantastic chemistry.
Stanley Goodspeed.
Yeah. Also, Goodspeed. Goodspeed. Go home. I'm going to get my PG-13 rating and go home and fuck the cheerleader. So...
just always whine about their best.
Yeah, and it's just, but I loved him in this movie. But also when the Marines that they go into get slaughtered, they just get caught and shot.
Michael Biehn.
And then, he's
you think this guy is going to come in and just kick the hell out of everybody.
And that was great about 90s movies. Executive Decision, Deep Blue Sea.
They would bring in these bigger cast members and you didn't know if they were going to make it.
Just wipe them out.
Not that they were, I don't think we can ruin a 24-year-old movie at this point. But, yeah, I mean, they wipe them out.
It's just, this movie, with those balls, too, those green poison balls, and Nick Cage diving for them, and the chips
the VX poison gas?
The chips that he has to take out of them.
the tracking
Bokeem Woodbine. Bokeem's awesome. Like, I loved him in Fargo Season 3. Just, you watch this movie, and it's just filled with everybody you like.
So, I think what gets me with this movie is, one, I've got to talk about Hans Zimmer, because I love the score in this movie.
Yeah.
This is like one of the greatest action scores of all time. It's like it's impossible not to get into it. But more with it is that this movie, believe it or not, was nominated for an Academy Award for sound editing. And I think that's what puts it up into tier 1 for me, is that there's so much going on in the movie audibly. Like, there's always something to listen to, something that you're going to discover. And it's like, this is one of the first action movies, like, when they just stop using the same gunshot effect over and over again. Like, you go back and listen to, like, some of, like, the earlier 90s movies, or, like, especially, like, Demolition Man. Like, the gunshots all sound the same. Everything sounds the same. Between handguns, shotguns, machine guns, it all sounds the same. This actually gets into, like, this deep, throaty bass for, like, one of the first times for, like, explosions, and it's just got a full scale to everything.
Now, you haven't watched Drunken Master 2, but would you put it as game change? So would you say I don't think True Lies was a game changing action film, but I think it's such a quality action film, it's tier 1. But would you put it alongside a T2, a Hard Boiled, or The Matrix as far as game changing?
The Rock?
Yeah.
For me, personally, yes.
Because of the sound design.
The sound design. And it's got the star power, too, behind it.
Big A-list star power.
I mean, Nick Cage, he was an Academy Award winner at that point. Yeah. Not necessarily action.
James Bond.
Sean Connery. Ed Harris. Like, those were huge names at that time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, just big, big monster names. And it's, again, like we talk about, I think Ed Harris's villain is one of the more underrated villains.
Great insight. Because
around. I mean, it's because you also relate to him. Like, he's doing this, he's lost his marbles, but he's doing it for a cause that I think everybody can relate to.
That's why, those are my favorite movie villains, where, like, the ones that come off the top of my head, I really like, in Black Panther, I really like that guy. They're the obvious villains. Michael B. Jordan.
Oh yeah, Killmonger.
Obvious villain. They're not the heroes, and they've lost it, but you understand them. And I think that's what makes villains really good. That's why this is gonna sound crazy, I've never been a big fan of the Joker, because everyone's like, he's all anarchy. But in Dark Knight, he has the most meticulous plan ever. Mm-hmm. So he's fabricating a fake public persona. I don't know. I don't relate to anything he does.
No, I don't.
Because it's not anarchy. It's not. It's controlled chaos. But for me, when I watch The Rock, I feel for Ed Harris, and I know why he he brings in people that are worse than him. You know, you watch, like, I don't know. I like knowing that the villain's the villain, but I also like knowing this is why they're the villain, and he's perfect for that. I mean, yeah, this is
Michael Bay at his absolute best. And it's his second movie ever.
This is his best action movie.
It's his by far and away, I think, his best movie in general.
Best acted? I mean,
I think it's got everything. Like, I don't think, like, there isn't really a character in it that I don't buy. Like, you even boil down to Forsythe and Spencer as like the FBI agents. Yeah. Like, everybody in the movie serves a purpose and they're good. Like, there's not a poorly acted character in the entire thing. But it's like, even like the camera work, like everything holds up. Everything is great. The color palette's amazing.
Yeah.
Like, I think it still looks good.
I guess he started with Bad Boys with that color palette. Yeah. And then he, like, an orange.
Yeah, it had like the orange and it, like the dark, the dark contrast. Yeah. The deep blacks and the light lights. Like, there was a huge difference on the scale between everything.
And it really had the rah-rah kind of Americana look when Nick Cage puts out the flares. Like, that's... Oh, yeah.
Launch green flares and wait for the cavalry, man.
I almost wish this movie wasn't a success, so then Michael Bay didn't just keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger.
Yeah, that... I've been waiting 20 years for him to dial it back and go back to these, and I think 13 hours is as close as you're going to get.
I like that movie.
I love 13 hours.
I like when he scales at Bad Boys. Mm-hmm. I like Pain and Gain.
I think that's part of my issue with, like, Bad Boys 2 is that he took it over the top. Like, it wasn't Bad Boys anymore.
They destroyed a shanty town.
Oh,
they killed hundreds.
They killed maybe thousands of people just, like, sleeping in that shanty town.
All right, so my next one is Heat, directed by Michael Mann. Mm-hmm. Now, this was my toughest inclusion because some people could say this is a thriller, crime thriller. I just think the action, though, was built around this gunfight in this. And this is a De Niro...
The heist.
Yeah, the heist. This is De Niro meeting Pacino. I mean, this was groundbreaking.
For the first time. Yeah.
And look... Oh, go for
it. They were in Godfather, but they had never shared...
It was a prequel, right?
Yeah, they had never shared the screen together. This was the first time in the cinematic history of two of the biggest name actors sharing the screen.
I mean, even in 95, So I'm 37. Even when I watched this movie in theaters in 95, I knew the significance. When I was 13, I knew the significance of the scene. And I loved Val Kilmer in this movie with Ashley Judd.
His name's Chris in this movie, right?
Yeah.
Do you think it's Chris Knight from Real Genius? Do you think he grew up, do you think he grew up to be a bad guy?
Oh, that makes me happy.
Marry a super hot Ashley Judd and then become a criminal.
I love the I could see him doing that. I loved, Wes Studies in this movie, Tom Sizemore. I like the cops and I like the villains. I like Ted Levine. I love the antagonists. I love the protagonists. Now, you could say maybe it's a crime thriller. Natalie Portman was in this movie too, and she commits suicide. Her first 3...
She lives.
Yeah.
Not that I'm spoiling anything. She attempts it, yeah.
She's also in Beautiful Girls when she's like 13, and this guy's like, if I wait 5 years, I can just hook up with her. And then you have Professional. She had
Leon.
her 3 first movies were gnarly, dude. But I think Heat is just a prestige movie with a gunfight that you watch Den of Thieves now. That wanted to be Heat.
It's wanted to be Heat, yeah.
And so
definitely isn't.
You can make the argument that this isn't an action movie, but I think this movie was written around this action scene. So I think they went into it with an action mindset. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. I think my battle with it is I don't know if I consider it an action movie like you are. So it would not offend me if it wasn't on the list. But I still feel, again, it's like if you're going to put in like a crime thriller list, this is a tier 1 for me.
Yeah, like Fugitive.
It's not 2.5 hours of balls to the wall action.
Yeah.
Like some of these other movies are.
I just, for some reason, so I left out like Last of the Mohicans, some of these movies, which we were talking about, I think has one of my favorite action scenes ever with the score. But for some reason, I couldn't take this out. I don't know why. I couldn't take it out. And so I guess that's where I'm kind of meaty on that. So that's why I also put it in tier 3. Tier 3, Mission Impossible, 96, directed by Brian De Palma. Now, this movie has some of the most iconic action scenes. This movie created more tension with Tom Cruise hanging from a wire, right? Than it...
In a controlled environment, computer server
Can
room.
you think of another... So in 96, you're watching this movie. Can you think of another scene where you just didn't breathe?
Where it's the tension of it, yeah. The sweat dripping off of his glasses. Like
and then also the scene on the train at the end where he explodes the helicopter and you get shot onto the train.
Pinches it together, slaps it on the glass, and then jumps.
I mean, I think De Palma also added a very noirish vibe to it, which was wrecked in Mission Impossible too.
Yeah, it's definitely speckled throughout the movie.
Yeah.
And especially there at the beginning, when they're doing the reconnaissance mission or like the follow mission of the guy. Yeah, trying to get the list.
Like I love
the list is in the open. Dead. They're all dead.
I hate when he kills the fish.
Oh yeah, throws the gum on the aquarium.
It's kind of
a dick move.
Yeah,
I feel like there's another way he could have gotten out, but then you wouldn't have that iconic shot of him running through the busted out window with all the water flowing in behind him.
He could have just ran away.
And man, he's got a good run. You've already covered that plenty.
Yeah, you're right.
You really see it in that movie.
My next tier 3 is Total Recall. Paul Verhoeven, fresh off of RoboCop. He also had Starship Troopers in the 90s, which I love. But I think it's too jokey, the premise.
Yeah.
To really be included in this, because Verhoeven makes Starship.
It's grounded, and you've got the gun paddles that were a necessity for you, but you're also not. It's not human on human.
Yeah, and it's just
a creature. It's almost a creature feature.
Creature shooting butt juice.
Yeah,
and blowing planes, right?
Brain sucking butt juice.
Now, Total Recall was a smash hit in 1990. Based off a Philip K. Dick novel. It was incredibly high concept for an Arnold Schwarzenegger movie, and we were talking about this. You should listen to our Total Recall episode because it's been my biggest MFF episode of 2019. And at the end, you don't know if he's dreaming, if he's still in there, if it's Total Recall, is he home? You don't know. So it's the rare 1990 big, ballsy, bloody action film
with brains.
It's a smart movie.
It's the inception of 1990.
Yeah, and people were confused by it, but I also think the makeup work is incredible. I love the makeup work in this movie. I mean,
when he's out and it's at Mars, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, when he's outside and he can't breathe, and all of a sudden he's like, and his eyes are bulging out of his head, and that's some pretty.
And I know it's like very 90, but the 3-breasted woman, and
I was just gonna say that I didn't know if I should.
Like, I want a divorce. Like the fight with Sharon Stone. Like and then Michael Ironside. I thought Michael Ironside was I think there had to have been people in the 80s. Well, Bennett, right? In Commando, but I thought Ironside was the best main henchman to the main antagonist.